So how do you feel about clouds? Awesome. Perhaps the childlike game of lying on your back, seeing the evolving shapes comes to mind. Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way. And yet Joni Mitchell goes on. But now they only block the sun, the rain, and the snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I really don't know clouds at all. So the weather report today from the Gospels could be cloudy with a chance of rain or sun, maybe a chance of solitude, new perspective, and transformation. Clouds carry the potential for transformation and change, and that just might be why our preference is to enjoy them from a distance. We don't want to be too close to, and certainly not in, a cloud. A while ago, I read an article about the Honolulu Fire Department rescuing hikers on a big mountain in Oahu. Maybe somebody read that too. A thick cloud had settled on the mountains, and several hikers became lost and could not find their way down. Clouds can be frightening because they make us come to a complete stop. They make us feel what it's like to not know the way forward or the way back. They ultimately make us let go of our control, our preconceived notions of who we are, where we are, what we want to be, and how we will get there. But those terrifying, cloudy feelings can be transformational, can be the presence of God. When Moses enters the cloud, all of humanity is given direction on how to be community. When Jesus enters the cloud, the mystical truth of God's presence in our humanity is nearly blinding. Is a cloud hanging over you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Are you in some way in a cloud? Transition in any form is like a cloud settling over us. Clouds can come in the form of grief, a loss of identity, feeling lost in some way, seeing no clear path forward. We may want to call 911 and to do anything to get out of such a place. But the question, especially as we approach Lent, is, can we be in the cloud? Can we welcome it? Can we learn from it and listen to it? To know it as the presence of God? Can we, like Moses, linger 40 days and 40 nights in such a space? I wish that when we were asked what our image of God was, we had developed our sense of God from this metaphor of a cloud. For one thing, it is already rooted in our faith tradition, as we are reminded of today. 2 stories, 3 actually, about clouds. But it's not just in these stories. The Israelites saw God as a cloud they followed along the way. Sometimes the cloud would be there to follow, and sometimes not. But historically, we elevated less mysterious and less intimate metaphors of God, like Lord, Almighty, King, which allows us to box ourselves out or box God in. But you cannot box in a cloud. You cannot enthrone or encase a concept of God if the metaphor you use is constantly evolving like a cloud, constantly changing. The 9th century Buddhist master Lin Chi supposedly said, "If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him." To turn the Buddha into a religious fetish is to miss the essence of what he taught. Chi's teaching proposes that students of the Buddha should dispense with Buddhism. Followers of Christ might do well to dispense with a Christianity which seeks to promote concepts of God that are controlled, neatly organized, boxed up in a systematic theology, or embedded in a culture that comforts us more than challenges us to actually grow or open ourselves to transformation. In an anonymous publication from the 14th century called The Cloud of Unknowing, the underlying message suggests that the way to encounter God is to abandon consideration of God's particular activities and attributes, and to be courageous enough to surrender one's mind and ego to the realm of unknowing, at which point one may begin to glimpse the nature of God. It's not that we need to know more. We just need to unlearn so much of the structures we've been handed and given. In an anonymous this publication, in the prologue, it reminds me of what Jesus told Peter: "Don't tell anyone what just happened." And it reminds me in this prologue why. Because he writes this student of his, whoever the author was, about unlearning, getting the concepts that hold us in, that frighten us, that create anxiety and fear, all of those concepts running around in our world, in our media, and unlearning them, going into a place of unknowing. This is what he says. Do not, this is to his student, do not willingly and deliberately read it, what I'm offering you. Do not read it deliberately, copy it, speak of it, or allow it to be read, copied, or spoken of by anyone or to anyone, except by or to a person who, in your opinion, has undertaken truly and without reservation to be a perfect follower of Christ. That's quite a PR campaign. Don't give it to anybody. It comes from the author's understanding that our human tendency is to take mystical truths and crush them into mental concepts where we feel safe. He goes on to say, for the first time you lift your heart to God with stirrings of love, you will find only a darkness and, as it were, a cloud of unknowing. Whatever you do, this darkness and the cloud that's between you and your God, and that holds you back from seeing God clearly by the light of understanding in your reason and from experiencing God in the sweetness of love in your feelings. You need to prepare to remain in this darkness as long as you can. Don't run from it. Listen to it. Receive it. Welcome it. Know that this is the opportunity to experience God. For God can well be loved, but God cannot be thought. Let that sink in. God can well be loved, but cannot be thought. By love, God can be grasped and held, but by thought, neither grasped or held. And therefore, though it may be good at times to think specifically of the kindness and excellence of God, and though this may be a light and a part of contemplation, all the same, in the work of contemplation itself, it must be cast down and covered with a cloud of forgetting. That freedom of forgetting those structures that create so much despair, tension, anxiety. He goes on to say, beat on that thick cloud of unknowing with a sharp dot of longing love, and do not give up whatever happens. Basically, we're caught in our heads. He's talking about contemplation, moving that long distance of, what do they say, 12 inches or whatever. You know, at the heart of our faith is to love God and accept God's love. Even in our tradition, we are constantly led to the mystical realities that cannot be boxed up. I love the general thanksgiving in the prayer book on page 836. Accept, O Lord, our thanks and praise for all that you have done for us. We thank you for the splendor of the whole creation, for the beauty of this world, for the wonder of life, for the mystery of love. Lent is the perfect season to welcome the clouds in our lives as the presence of God and to turn our hearts again towards the mystical, uncontrollable gifts of splendor, beauty, wonder, and love. Joni Mitchell wrote Both Sides Now at the age of 23. She was going through a very, very difficult time in her life. A cloud hung over her. She did not know how to get out from under it. Later, she would write what inspired her to write that song. She said, I was reading Henderson the Rain King. That's authored by Saul Bellow. He's on his way to Africa and he looks down and sees these clouds. She was on a plane reading this book. I put down the book, looked out the window, and saw clouds too. And I immediately started writing the song. I had no idea that the song would become as popular as it did. One biographer commented that as she aged, it was as if the song evolved and became more powerful and more present. Aging itself is like a cloud. Think about it. It descends on us. And it was as though she was not looking from below or above, but was now within the cloud, with a deeper wisdom. As we grow older, it is said that we know less and less. Thanks be to God. If this unknowing, this letting go, leads us to the mystery of love. Lent is a time to let go of what we think we know and confess that we don't really know God at all. To not only understand the cloud of God from both sides, but to enter into the cloud with open hearts. For there, as we let go of our desire to control, our desire to believe, our desire to be on top of everything we think faith needs, we will discover that we can feel God, love God, and be loved by God. And we will find the transformation we are truly longing for.
and flows of angel hair, and ice cream castles in the air, and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way you feel as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave 'em laughing when you go, and if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've looked at life that way, but now old friends are acting strange. They shake their heads, they say I've changed, but something's lost, but something's gained in living every day. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life at all. I've looked at clouds from both sides